us. Come on and join us on the front porch. Come join us on the front porch with Randy and friends.
Hello everyone and welcome to Front Porch Chat with Randy and Friends. Coming to you today from Florella, inside again. We had some threatening weather. Is it weather, Glenda?
What is it?
That we were a little bit concerned about. So we decided to bring the show back inside. And it's so much nicer because we get to have air conditioning.
Well, it's nice, but we gotta find another porch.
We do. If you have a front porch that you would like us to come and visit and bring our show to you, please take a moment and email me at frontporchchatwithrandy@gmail.com. Send us a picture of your front porch. We'll take a look at it. You never know. We'll send Scott out there. Scott's with our production crew. He'll decide if it's going to work or not, and we'll go from there. So make sure we see your front porch, or post it on our Facebook page, Front Porch Chat with Randy at facebook.com. Yeah. Glenda, as we do on every show, we take some very, very serious questions from our viewers and things that are happening in pulp culture. And I think we're going to start out with one of the most serious I've heard in a long time today. So I think it's very important. Let me open it. You haven't seen this yet, right?
No.
It's about softballs.
Like the sports softball?
New England's Patriot Tom Brady is being penalized for 4 games for having squishy balls. There's nothing like a squishy ball.
I don't know. I don't have squishy balls.
And so, you had some people apparently helping him. Before I go too much further, let me tell you, this question is brought to you in part by the amazing Matthew Bingston at Trend Studios, who happens to do my hair, and Jacqueline Siegel's hair. He's the hairdresser to the star.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, give him a call at 407-237-3213. We'll put that number below there as well. And book an appointment with Matthew. He's a great hairdresser and a great friend as well. But anyway, what do you think about the squishy balls?
Well, I mean, if they had knowledge that deflating the ball, the football, was something that was not up to the league standards, or that they felt it was the way to win games, then so be it. There should be the penalty. However, I don't know, 4 games and $1 million, I believe, was the fine, if I'm not mistaken. Wasn't it $1 million?
What happens if a ball naturally becomes deflated and it's to their advantage?
Well,
Are you saying?
I'm sure you watch so much NFL football.
I am extremely engaged in
sure.
all levels of balls.
They literally have tons of balls on the sidelines.
Let me tell you.
No pun intended. Big ones and little ones.
Let me tell you, there's nothing like...
If something like that were to happen, they have plenty balls that are already done.
You're a big mess. You really are. That hat and those shoes, it's just a big mess. All right.
One big mess. Hey, I needed to make that viewer happy, the one that hated my other hat.
Yeah, because they said it looked like Roger Scott's hat.
Speaking of, Roger Scott, right?
No, this is... Well, yeah, this is his question. This question is brought to you by Roger Scott, criminal defense attorney to the stars. 407-928-5540 is his phone number. If you're ever in trouble, give Roger.
He's an attorney to the stars?
He's an attorney to everybody. You get a DUI or you misstep or whatever in your life, he's going to be there for you. Okay. A judge is kind of deciding right now whether John Hinckley Jr., now this is the person that attempted to assassinate a former president, one of the best presidents we ever had, and Ronald Reagan. I swear I do believe that.
Well, he did make one mistake.
Yeah, well, okay.
Yeah.
And long story short is, I didn't realize that John Hinckley has already been spending time outside of this mental ward that he was assigned. He was determined that he was mentally unstable to stand trial, so they basically put him away in the cuckoo bin. But long story short is, he's been going out for 17 years. His mother is 89, he is 60, and now they're trying to determine if it's okay for him to live out on his own with his mother. What do you think?
Well, I think it's really going to depend on, what has happened to other people. I mean,
is he rehabilitated?
Well, who knows? I mean, that's a lot of years. I'm sure he's had a lot of therapy. He's on probably a lot of medications. I think the more person that would be more concerned.
That's exactly who he went out in the public.
Yeah.
A lot of therapy and a lot of medications.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of us walking around like that. But, we don't kill people or try to kill people. But Jodie Foster, was actually his point of affection. It wasn't the president. He just wanted to prove to her that he loved her, and he happened to be the fall guy for that. But I think what's interesting is, allowing without, I think, is there an ankle bracelet involved, not involved?
No, they don't want the ankle bracelet. And, one of the things the prosecutor also wanted was to be able to document. He was going to have to tell you what he was going to do for the week. First of all, I go to the grocery store every day. I'm one of those weird people. You know that because you're on the phone with me usually. So I can't tell you what I'm going to do. Well, it's truth. I don't like to plan what I'm going to eat for the rest of the week. So I think that.
Well, but what has he done in 17 years? I mean, if he's been doing this 17 years, we didn't know about it. I mean,
You know, the
17 years
reality
a long
is,
time.
to me, the crime, he attempted to, not just the president, there were 3 other people, I believe, that were hit by bullets that day. But the reality is, that was the punishment. And if that's the punishment, the crime was this, why are we going to all of a sudden assume he was cured? I just wonder if science has come along that far to be able to do that.
No, well, who knows? Hopefully he won't shoot anybody else.
Hopefully he will not wait for his, because his mom's 89. Once his mom dies, you know that's going to be traumatic for him as well. Someone who's already mentally unstable goes back out into society, that could be a big problem.
Who knows? We'll see.
Okay. Well, this is going to be for Orlando folks, but guess what? You have a Paramore wherever you live in this country. It's basically an economically depressed area that's right near downtown. Throughout many years, since I've lived here since 1994, being pushed further and further away. It's one of the oldest black communities that we have. And recently we were learned that the Housing Authority had offered up $64 million. This is like 7 years ago, right? This is not recent.
No, it's been a while.
For redevelopment, for low-income housing and apartment communities. Long story short is it's come out this week that the apartment community was built, and 1 house out of 57, and what they show then are parcels, and maybe we can get a picture of this. We'll see if we can get a picture of this to flash up, but parcels then of land sitting with streets, street lights, and plumbing, sewers, everything, and nothing's happening. Glenda?
Well, I mean, what was the intentions in the very beginning? This is what I get so frustrated about politics and government being too much involved with, purchasing of land or developing land or, taking away from the investors that could have gone in there and maybe built something 7 years ago, 5 years ago that was affordable for these families. There's something more behind this. It's not what we're seeing. Sorry, hate to be the person to bring that out.
So what do you think that means? Do you think there's like this little bitty map someplace that nobody knows about, and they're just kind of positioning all the future of Orlando?
I mean, you and I talked about this. Paramore, if you look at the location of Paramore, and it was an eye-opener for me, for someone to say it's high-end real estate. It is. Look where it's located. It's very small.
Oh my gosh, it's very small.
What, a 1.4, maybe
Something
2
like
miles
that,
at the
yes.
most? And it's the most sought-out piece of real estate around I-4 in downtown Orlando. There's something more behind this story. I don't know what it is. I think it will come out.
Well, I think what's
but there's more
behind it is if you're going to expand downtown Orlando, let's be honest, it's cheaper to expand it that way than it would where we're sitting today to expand it this way, because they could have my house any day of the week. They could come if they want to build a stadium right here, go for it. I'll get an attorney, we'll make a good deal. It's all that.
Right.
But the reality is to go that way, where there's lower income housing and it's cheaper, that's the best direction from a fiscal perspective to make that decision.
There's just something there, and it started a while back, and I don't think we're going to hear the end of it, unfortunately.
Well, wait a minute now.
And who sponsored
Who
that
sponsored
question?
that question? That was sponsored by, your little place. Wholesale Furniture at 940 State Road 436 in Castleberry, Florida. Beautiful Castleberry, Florida. Glenda, you are often posting things on social media. People can come to you anytime and get great deals on furniture there.
We do. 80% of our inventory is from Macy's and Bloomingdale's. We do get some estate furniture and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's been really good for us. We, social media, we're huge there, making a huge presence of offering deals to my friends and people that know me in the community, and we take care of them.
So when you go in, say you're with Glenda or ask for Glenda, or say, you saw it on the front porch.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that, throwing some names around. And there
You
you
get a
go.
discount.
Okay, as we talk about sponsors, we'll just quickly get into this. Next question is brought to you by my good friends at Wildsides. Love those folks, and it's right here in Thornton Park at the corner of Summerlin and Washington. Here's the question. A piece of art, and they're going to flash a little picture of this little Picasso. They're going to flash it up. Was sold for $179.3 million. I believe it's called the Woman of the Ages, and was painted by Pablo Picasso on Valentine's Day in 1955. Who's got that kind of money?
Somebody does.
How do you decide, I got a little bitty picture here I got at the Kmart. I'm going to change that. I'm going to put a Picasso up there. How do you do
Well,
that?
I mean, again, I think it's New York, for an example. If we were sitting in New York and you went to an art museum, there's a group of people that that's their life, and that is their way to establish themselves of someone in society as being in art. You know, I don't understand that. I look at a piece
Well, they
of
were
art.
anonymous.
Well, it doesn't matter.
And interestingly enough, the
well,
entire
you know they're
room-
involved somehow.
Yeah, everybody who bid on this piece, and this is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
They would not have physically, because I'm like, if I'm buying something, I got to open the door, shut the door, kick the tires, all that kind of stuff. They didn't see it other than through.
Well, they already know what it is, and they know it went
So
through.
then once they realize it's valuable, it's just valuable.
Yeah, it's just valuable. I mean, that's it, and it's just for people that I don't know.
Last question, Glenda.
I know them personally.
And this is just brought to you by frontporchchat.com because we have a special membership. I always say, what is that? It's membership section on frontporchchat.com where you can actually, for $2.99 a month, you can be a member, and we're starting to throw some coupons up there and everything. Just go do it. We got to pay for this show somehow. Support the show that way, folks. Here it is. Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer. What? You don't like Buddy Dyer?
Let me take a drink on that one.
Okay. Let me take a drink with you on that one. I'll just cheers to that one. Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer, who is pretty much at this point, I understand, running unopposed. And even if someone gets in the race with such a short window of time, it's going to be difficult to beat him. He has a super PAC, or a PAC, and Political Action Committee, for people who don't know what that means. And they have started diverting their funds to the mayor's race in Jacksonville, Florida. So, that became news this week.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this isn't just an Orlando issue. I imagine anyone who has a surplus of money in their Political Action Committee funding probably diverts it in different directions. Why is he doing this, Glenda?
Well, I want to know, the real reason people are upset about it is apparently the person that he's supporting does not support marriage equality. I think that's what it's really coming down to. Is it really about the fact that this guy is running for mayor up in Jacksonville? That supposedly is the largest demographic of voters, by the way, which I learned that on social media.
Really?
Yeah, I did. I learned that on social media. I didn't either. Apparently up in
It's
Jacksonville,
so
they
spread
vote.
out and everything.
Well, they vote. They vote for whatever reason. The bottom line is that what I'm trying to understand, why is it so important for him, being a mayor, to support another mayor? I mean, wouldn't you support somebody
Well,
that's
there's got to be a
higher-
reason.
Well, then what is
Well,
it?
I've heard a lot of rumors. They're all rumors, folks. I heard a rumor that somehow Buddy Dyer has property on Jacksonville Beach given to him, and that sounds like a conspiracy. All of a sudden, that sounds like a conspiracy.
Yeah, but what is a mayor going to do about that? What, just so he doesn't have to pay taxes?
Is there some long-term connection that we can make between us and Jacksonville? We haven't done it so far.
They're saying that, supposedly he may be running for governor.
I could see him, if he was running for governor, making a connection in Miami. I cannot see making a connection
Well,
in
they might not like him in
Jacksonville.
Miami. Apparently, somebody likes him in Jacksonville. And as I have heard, and what I've seen, is that many people are saying demographically it is a very high vote. And supposedly, Mr. Dyer has some credibility up in Jacksonville. They like him.
Okay, well, with that said, folks, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have Cindy Hamilton on the show. Cindy is an amazing, number one, an amazing mom, but more importantly, she's an activist, really engaged in the concept of understanding high-stake testing, charter schools, all the other things that come across with that. She's really an activist in our community. I've watched her for a number of years, and I'm excited to have her on the show. I think we're going to find a lot of interesting information out from her, Glenda. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up our little 5 questions? You want to talk about spongy balls again?
No, I'm not going to talk about spongy balls again.
Nobody likes the spongy balls. And with that said, everybody, we'll be back on the front porch in just a second.
Randy and Friends.
Hi, I'm Randy Ross.
First thing people should do, I would say, is start listening and shut up.
Don't say black on black crime. We had this conversation.
Everybody was like, whoa, he's not a cop, what's up?
The statistics are the statistics.
I'm no stranger to politics, but I'm bringing it to you with a twist. Whenever you hear us say the word politics, go ahead and drop it in.
I ran for office, right? I lost. It's a fact.
You know what? Is it perhaps a socioeconomic education level issue?
Whatever community you're talking about, it's about people.
Okay, we understand the issues. So what are we going to do? We have to learn respect again.
Fine, you greedy bastard.
sell
Here's
it.
your $5.
That's a good
Life
And I will say cheers to that.
Cheers.
Politics, yeah.
Real people, real discussions, and cocktails every Sunday at 11. So you drink coffee every day?
Yes.
Do you put Jack Daniels in it every time?
That gives me the boost I need.
Oh, jeez.
I want to send a special thank you to Trend Studios, especially Matthew Bingston. You know, he is the hairdresser to the stars, everybody. He does my locks. But the reality is Matthew is a great guy, great hairdresser, and we appreciate Trend Studios being one of our sponsors. The phone number to give Matthew a call to schedule an appointment is right below my face, probably right here, someplace like right here. And so give Matthew a call and support Trend Studios because we appreciate their support here on the Front Porch. Hello everyone and welcome back to Front Porch Chat with Randy and Friends. I'm joined on the Front Porch today with Cindy Hamilton. Welcome, Cindy.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I know, we talked before.
We have.
A lot.
Yeah, I know.
You know, I've been watching you for now a few years and what it is that you do as related to your compassion regarding the school system. What I wanted you to kind of do though is kind of fill us in on how you got started in not only just the high stakes testing process and the charter school and all that. What got you to be so engaged as a parent and want to be an activist for the things that you're passionate about?
Well, I have 3 children, 2 who are in college and 1 that is still in Orange County Public Schools. So I have been through the system from the beginning to the end. I have one child who is my oldest who in 3rd grade, he actually failed the FCAT. And the FCAT at that time was only a measurement of how the student was doing. There was not a mandatory retention year for 3rd grade, which now if a student fails 3rd grade testing, they are automatically retained. They have to repeat it.
He didn't get held back though.
He didn't. It was the year before it was instituted. So that kind of made me start asking questions about testing and how did it really benefit a student's experience in the classroom, because I really wasn't seeing that with my own kids. I became an advocate for kids within public school and teachers when I noticed, even at this time, which would have been 16 years ago, that teachers didn't feel they had a real voice with their superiors. So when they wanted something, they would always come and kind of nudge a parent and say, you know, hey, this is going on. You really need to be aware of this.
Right.
At that point, I started advocating for things for the Conway schools with our school board representative, who was in his 1st or 2nd year, but it was Rick Roach.
Right.
And then
big fan of his.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And he kind of dragged me into the Orange County Public School System because school board members have to invite community members to be part of calendar committees, ELE or ELL committees, ESE, the special needs committees. So they have to nominate somebody who is going to come and represent them on these committees for Orange County. So he started asking me to do things like that. About 3 years ago, he was working on a white paper for the Central Florida School Board Coalition on what's wrong with the FCAT. FCAT used to be our high stakes standardized test.
Right.
It is now the FSA or Florida Standards Assessment. We are in the 1st year of implementation for the first test, for the new test. So we wrote a paper, not just Rick and I, but a whole panel of experts on education. And then I started really getting involved in what was wrong with testing.
And let's go into that. What is really wrong with, I mean, even back when I was in school, which just a couple years ago, I remember the testing process even back then. So it's obviously been going on for a long time.
Oh yeah.
And what's changed about it that's made it work? Because I can throw something up on on the internet regarding charter schools, public schools, all of this, and parents just go nuts over it. It's obviously a very passionate point.
Right.
What's changed about the testing that's made parents so angry?
Well, when you and I were assessed, me probably more, not as recent as you, but when we were assessed, it was to inform our instruction. And that means that a teacher got the results back and it helped to gauge the growth and gains that you had made. And that was really it. That was the purpose of the test.
So it wasn't connected to funding or connected to grading of schools or anything like that?
That's relatively new. So now we have high stakes attached to these tests. And that can be remediation for the student, meaning they have to go into intensive reading, retention, meaning they would have to repeat the year they're in, denial of a diploma in the case of 10th graders, which means if you don't pass the test, you don't get a diploma in the state of Florida. Also, school grades are attached and teacher pay is attached. So
And I'm sure that's not a big, teachers don't, that's not very popular with teachers. I can't imagine that would be a very popular.
I think it's even less popular with the parents.
Sure.
Because their students are, and parents are very aware that all of these high stakes are attached to the student's assessment. So it has become less and less about the student and how they're doing, and more about how the institution of education is doing.
Right.
And so, you've got 8-year-olds, third graders that are aware of the fact that if they don't pass, they don't get to go to fourth grade. If they don't pass, their teacher doesn't get paid well. If they don't pass, their school grade goes down. I don't think most 8-year-olds understand the fact that also that is attached to real estate prices and whether somebody's going to buy in that neighborhood, because it affects the school grade. A lot of people shop housing by school grades, which it's my opinion they need to do a little more research on that, because the school grade is attached to a lousy test. So that's really what has changed, is that the stakes have become higher. And
But we seem in Orange County not to be able to even make some of those lists. There's a story that came out this last week in the top 50 high schools or something like that. And where was Orange County in that? I think we only had 2.
No, well, I was just reading the article today. I thought we actually had like 18 out of the top 100, but I would have to go back and update myself.
Okay, maybe I was wrong.
But quite frankly, I don't really care about school grades myself, because I know that those are only a measure of zip code. It has very little to do with how great those teachers are in that school. That interests me way more than what the school grade is I would want to, if I were going to move into a neighborhood, I would want to talk to my future neighbors and find out, what do you think of the teachers? What do you think of the administration? Not what the school grade is, because that is, it has been determined by a high stakes test. And for instance, this year in Florida, we have a brand new test. We have many brand new tests. We have
and some of those are not being well received.
None of them
No,
are being well
I think
received
there was one
right now.
that they just totally shut it down or something.
Well, we have a new set of standards this year. That's in full implementation. This is the first year for Florida Standards, which, quite frankly, is just Common Core Standards renamed. But we attached to that our tests, and the Florida Standards Assessment is its first year of being implemented, and it has been riddled with delivery problems. We have computers crashing. We have districts, specifically Senator Montford retold a story about how one of his principals in his district had to actually drive computers from school to school because technologically their district was just not ready to deliver these tests. These are the FSA tests are computer delivered tests for the most part. There are some of the younger grades that are still paper pencil. With computer delivery, you have to meet technology requirements. There's something called a load test. That means that a school has enough broadband width for every kid to be signing on. It just didn't happen.
Oh, I can imagine.
There was a lot of test crashing going on.
Tell me about who are your allies in this process? I would imagine that teachers are supportive of you. I would imagine the school board isn't necessarily liking that. I imagine parents are. So what kind of interaction and support do you get from each one of those? I know you even said you were at a school board meeting last night. Mm-hmm. I saw you recently. I was looking at some of the documentation of you being at school board. You're obviously highly articulate on these issues, and I'm sure that's somewhat intimidating even to the school board. What is the relationship like, and what are you ultimately trying to accomplish?
What we're trying to accomplish short term is to get the high stakes removed from the testing so that we have authentic assessment of students, so that whatever test these students are taking is going to inform instruction, and that any stakes attached to the students specifically, like determining whether or not they get moved to the next grade or if they need some extra help, that those things are based on multiple measures. What that means is that the test is only part of your toolbox, but what should be the biggest weight in those decisions would be that of the professional, the teacher that spends all those hours with your student every day.
Absolutely.
So our allies are teachers. Teachers right now, the state basically has a gag order on our teachers. If our teachers speak about what is wrong in their classrooms, they can lose their certification. So parents
Legally,
do,
they can lose their certification.
yes, yeah. If they talk about anything to do with the testing, their opinion about the testing, what's wrong with the testing, they can be challenged, and their certification and their contracts can be challenged.
In a period of time leading up to the test, how much time does a teacher spend
All year.
all year?
All year. They spend prepping students for testing all year.
So how do they get the other parts of the curriculum in there? Are they just kind of always working the test into that part, or?
The curriculum is based on the standards. If you were to have a conversation with Education Commissioner Pam Stewart, she would say if you teach the standards, you're going to be fine with the test. The problem is that the new standards, which are based on the Common Core standards, are cookie cutter standards. And that means that a teacher in any classroom has, basically they have a notebook that says on May 11th you're going to be on this page, on May 12th you're going to be on this page, and great teachers know how to work that so that it works for students. Some teachers don't. Some teachers don't know how to make it work for students, but the system itself isn't set up for them to make it work for students.
Right.
It's made to get through that curriculum, get through that book, so that when testing arrives, you're ready to deliver that test and the student is supposed to be ready to take it. God forbid a student doesn't understand a concept right away.
Sure.
Because according to the way the standards work, you're supposed to move on. And it's, sorry, Charlie, but you're going to have to get help elsewhere. It's not coming from me.
Right.
So, but when you talk about who is it that's interested in education today, really this year it's everyone, because the state of Florida implemented the FSA test. End of course exams are something that is required by the state, and we took Race to the Top money, and it's a requirement of that every student has to be tested for every single course, every single grade. And that meant that kindergarten through 12th grade had to take a test for every single class they
Kindergarten?
took. Kindergarten.
I don't remember taking
Yeah.
tests in kindergarten.
No. And if you think about a kindergartner having to sit for an hour and a half at a computer.
Well, I do remember my kindergarten teacher's name, Mrs. Button. I had a crush. That was my first crush, Mrs. Button. That was her
Isn't it
name.
one- and
She was
this is-
beautiful. She was really pretty.
And it's a good time because Teacher Appreciation Week was last week, so I hope you remember.
Maybe maybe she's out there somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, I want to take a quick break, actually, and I want to come back to this conversation. I also want to explore I know you had kids that were in charter school, and charter school versus public school is always this very interesting debate for me to watch. I also want to bring Glenda back with us because Glenda has her son out at Celebration, and there's some interesting things that happen there, and that's also part of this whole process. So we're going to take just a quick break, and when we come back, we will have Glenda Chauncey back on the porch with Cindy Hamilton. We'll continue the conversation about schools.
Randy and Friends.
Hello, everybody. This is Randy Ross with Front Porch Chat with Randy and Friends. I got a call into the production company, Titus Productions. We're actually getting ready to go meet them over in an area called Winter Park, which is not very far from downtown Orlando. We are taking a look at a 35-foot motorhome, y'all, something that we would brand on both sides. It may or may not be this one. We started the process of looking, but it's always been part of the business model to make sure that we have a way to travel around to front porches all over America. We are taking over Charles Carrault's position, folks. Anyway, Front Porch Chat with Randy and Friends, every Sunday at 11.
Hello, everyone. One of the things that we're most excited about is when we get to announce a new sponsor here at Front Porch Chat with Randy and Friends. And today we get to announce Wholesale Furniture, located at 940 State Road 436 in Castleberry. Uniquely, one of my co-hosts that's actually on the show, Glenda Chauncey, works there. All you have to do is go in and say you heard about it on Front Porch Chat with Randy and Friends, and guess what? They're going to give you a great deal. Front Porch Chat with Randy and Friends, every Sunday at 11. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Front Porch Chat with Randy and Friends. I'm here with our special guest today, Cindy Hamilton. She's not just a mom, she's an activist that has gotten greatly involved in the whole testing process that we're going to learn not just a Florida issue, that's a national issue. And I also brought back Glenda Chauncey. Glenda actually has a son that's in a nearby school system and has some opinions about the testing process as well. So, Cindy, right before we went to break, we were kind of getting into the conversation. I want to learn more about what are the penalties if a child is going in to test, and I'm assuming they've talked to their parent about, the parent has just said, we don't want you to take this test. What are the penalties, or are there penalties if a child does not take the test?
Well, first, we might clarify the fact that I also run an organization called Opt Out Orlando, which is an organization that schools families on how to not take the test. And it is a form of disobedience and protest about what's going on in our public schools today. The state law in Florida is very specific about the requirements for testing. It says that all districts must administer the test and all students are required to participate. The definition, however, of participation is lacking from the statute. It is required for a student to participate. It is not required that they...
Wait a second, you have an audience member. Hold on a second. Continue.
It is not required that a student, or mandated that a student must answer the questions.
So they literally, and I had seen recently where one of a senator was asking, a state senator was asking you this, but what you're saying is that as long as they sit through the test, they're considered participating?
Yes. By when the school grades the test, or the district or the Department of Education, depending on which test you're talking about. If we're talking about the Florida Standards Assessment, that goes back to the state. So the tests are assigned codes or numbers. If a student breaks the seal on the test for a paper test, or logs into a computer test but does not answer any questions, they get what's called an NR code. An NR2 code is basically, it equals no data. Not a 0, 1, 2, or a 3. It's not a failure score. It means they were present, that it's recorded that they sat there, but they did not answer any questions. An NR2 code, really, it doesn't damage the teacher. It doesn't become part of the teacher evaluation. It doesn't become part of the number for a school grade, and it does not impact the student negatively.
What about the folks that say that all kids should participate in the testing process, that no child should be able to not do that? Because as I'm listening, it sounds like the statute's giving us the freedom to sit there and not participate in it.
No, I don't, and I don't want to confuse anyone there. Your student is required to take the test by state law. We aren't asking permission to opt out, but we want to initiate change in our public schools, and we have done it the traditional way. We have begged our representatives in Tallahassee to make change and remove high stakes. We have pleaded with our school boards to say we are not going to participate in these bad education practices anymore. This is now the last step. I mean, it is really about, when you ask your children to be on the front lines with you and to deny this data, not provide it to the schools, not provide it to the testing companies, that's really the last step. And we are under no false pretenses. We are very upfront with the fact that this is civil disobedience. We are not asking permission. We are not asking for accommodations. We refuse to provide the data which is supporting this lousy system. That's really what it comes down to.
What do you think about it?
It's just so complicating. Like
it is extremely
I go
complicated.
back into when I was in school. I'm just sitting here listening to you, and and I talk to my son quite a bit, who is in Celebration, which is Osceola County. He's been there. He'll be 13 in October. He's been there from day one. A few things that have been wonderful for his education is that they have a very small student ratio to a teacher. They have tons of assistants. I mean, you go there and it's like, how many assistants do one child need? It's almost overcompensating. It's so crazy. But when I talk to Grayson about his testing and what he's getting ready for, and I don't even understand it as a parent. I'm going, what is this? And what do you have to do? And I go, don't you just answer fill in the blank or A, B, C, D, E, F, G? And it's not like that. And then when he just did his test recently, their systems went down.
Yes.
And it caused havoc. I go, okay, then go grab pencil and paper and go take a test. No. I'm trying to understand, why is it so complicating? And the thing that it always makes me realize, somebody up there, I don't know if it's money or where that trail is going.
It is money.
But it has to do with money, because there's nothing else that's making sense. And it's so complicated. And now I understand why people don't get engaged, because it seems so out of the norm to me. Like, I didn't even realize, other than sitting here listening to this interview, really how complicated this really is.
And people come to us when something's gone wrong.
Yeah.
And this year, a lot's gone wrong. We have suddenly students, really young students. I'm talking about, we call them the littles. The K through 2 kids and the K through 3 kids. They're coming home, and they don't want to go to school anymore.
Because of the testing
Yes,
preparation
because-
Well, I
process.
mean,
Because
think
it is-
about tests.
they're
I mean,
under-
even going, you're under stress. I mean, you're
Right.
already under stress when you're.
Well, it's not just about the test itself. It's what happens when your entire year is
Based
the
on that,
goal,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
it takes away from real instruction time. And we often say that part of our motive here is to reclaim instruction time.
Are you seeing a lot of people going to homeschooling now? Is that starting to happen? Because I hear this a lot, that people are starting to go into
to be
that.
honest with you, Opt Out Orlando's goal is to restore public education. So we do not support anything that takes away from public ed.
Gotcha.
Because a lot of this is about dismantling public education and to privatize it. And so we know that people are leaving public ed for alternatives and for choice. What we want to encourage them to do is stay with us and fight for public education. Because what will happen is, when the people that can afford to go, what will be left are the hardest, most difficult cases, the kids who need the most help. And once the money leaves the public school system, who's going to be left there to really work with those kids?
Well, I know there's a lot of teachers walking. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's the saddest part. I mean, we have the lowest wages for teachers that are out there trying their hardest.
And for most teachers, this isn't about money. This is about
Right, oh, no.
autonomy.
Yeah.
It's about being able to use their craft and their profession to teach children, and they're just not allowed to do that
What kind
anymore.
of feedback do you get? Because I've seen you obviously on the tape, but I wasn't at the school board meeting last night. What's the school board's reaction to you? And what you're doing?
It's interesting. Our other school boards across the state are very supportive. They actually reach out to us to ask us about our tactics and ask them for, they ask us to help them make a bigger impact in Tallahassee. Quite frankly, the word opt out and what we're doing was mentioned about a dozen times on the Senate and House floors this session.
powerful.
Yeah. So our parents have made a big difference there. Our parents saying, we're not providing that data anymore to you, got things moving this year. As Bill Sublette himself says, it took a parent revolt to make things happen in Tallahassee.
Is our
He's our school board
school
chair.
board chair,
Correct.
just so
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Well, I want to ask a question too, because since you're so involved with this, and when you're an activist or an advocate, you tend to really know what's going on. I was looking at the other day, I think it was yesterday, there was some kind of a ranking that went out. I don't know the exact
we were talking
name.
about that in the
I don't
earlier
know the exact
segment.
name.
We were talking
But
about
I literally went through it and looked at, it was state of Florida. And it was interesting how Seminole County had 5 or 6 schools, I want to say 5 or 6 or more, that were rated high in this ranking. And I'm thinking, why is Seminole County doing so much better than Orange and Osceola, Lake County?
You have to look at the total demographics of Seminole County compared to Orange County. And economic demographics are very important here when it comes to school grades. You can pretty much guess what the income level is of a school just by their school grade.
Really?
So we have a much more diverse population in Orange County than Seminole County does. And economic diversity is different. So I would hesitate to say, in fact, I would defend right up front, it has nothing to do with the quality of schools. It has everything to do with the zip code and the money in the neighborhoods.
Interesting.
So you're going to find great teachers here in Orange County, and you're going to find great teachers in Seminole County. However, that being said, I will say that I believe that part of the issue in Orange County is morale. I think that we have serious morale issues here. You can see it in the thousands of teachers that are leaving. You can see it in parents that are going to be withdrawing their students after this nightmare of a testing season. And I think you can see it when you attend board meetings. I think that when you go to a Seminole County board meeting, if you watch Superintendent Walt Griffin and how he addresses his board and how respectful he is of his teachers and staff, I think there is a significant difference than if you look at how Dr. Barbara Jenkins talks to our staff. Now, when we go to a board meeting, I was
Just real quickly, everybody understands the superintendent is not an elected. It used to be elected, right? Well, didn't it used to be elected a long time ago?
it is now an
It's
appointed
it's
position.
Appointed position.
Yeah.
And she's up. Her contract is up when?
End of this year. I think she's got 1 year left.
1 year. And do you anticipate that her contract will be renewed?
I have no idea. I have no control over that.
And that's appointed from the governor. Is that who's appointed?
No, there's a local committee, and then the board itself works on that. So, but I do think that there is a serious issue, and I don't think it's unknown. I think that Walt Griffin in Seminole County actually dropped testing, several tests before we did. He has applied to the Florida Department of Education asking for a waiver from some of the state testing for next year. And frankly, to the parents, even if the Department of Ed says no, it looks like he really was proactive, and that is so important for morale. And I think we have a morale issue here. I'm sure our school board is aware of this. I fear that our board needs to be reminded, and they're not going to like hearing this, but they need to be reminded.
That's okay.
They need to be
It's just a little
reminded.
show on a front porch. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, they need to be reminded of who works for who. They do not work
I think
for
a
the
lot of-
superintendent.
Yeah,
Yes, a lot
there's
of-
a lot of elected officials out there that need to get that
Right.
attitude.
Yeah, but the way when you watch the dynamics of our board, you would swear that the superintendent is the boss, and the board, the chain of command is voters, board and chair, superintendent, area superintendent, principals, and teacher.
Right.
It's not switched. And so I asked them about this last night, and they didn't answer my questions. But I said, why don't you make motions? Why are you sending recommendations to the superintendent instead of the superintendent giving recommendations to you?
Yeah,
So
I have on a personal level. Sorry, how you have 3 kids? I heard earlier.
I do.
How because I'm an advocate, out there always for the people, and I have a son that has
I'm
to
going to
live
drink
with
to
me.
that one.
How does your family? Are they very supportive of what you're doing? Because you're putting yourself out there. You really are putting yourself, your
But not
opinions.
in a dangerous way.
Well, I'm not. Well, how do you know?
That's not dangerous, is it?
Well, they may not
Yeah,
want
it's
her
a
to
little dangerous.
talk. Of
Is it
course.
really?
Yeah, it's a
She's going up against the grain. They don't like that. I mean, how many times do we have to have the show like this?
So what do they do? They don't. What do they?
Well, I mean, are her children, experiencing any backlash?
That's
I
an
mean,
interesting point.
My kids, I have 2 students in
Okay,
college.
I'm pushing a dog off. This is live television, folks. There we go.
Oh, poor Chloe.
I had no idea what to do now.
Okay, come back, Chloe.
Yeah,
Come
but
here,
I
come
have-
here,
I
come
have
here.
two-
Don't go away. All right, back
is
to
a
serious
fickle
conversation.
dog.
It's a very fickle dog. We have a lot of those around here.
But I have students in college, and I have one in high school. At this point,
Now, did they go to public school or charter? They did.
and charter schools are public schools. First of all,
Right.
you had to keep that in mind. There's a difference in charter schools because you can have corporate managed or for-profit charter schools, and then you can have parent-founded nonprofit charter
And this is
schools.
a heated issue for a lot of
It
parents.
is, and it's a really big issue. So
It's a whole other show, maybe.
It is a whole
Yeah.
other show.
Well, there's a couple of them that just closed down. Wasn't there a big one?
Well,
that
that's
just
kind of
shut
what her
down?
point is that the ones that aren't managed well, the ones that keep shutting, and they get all the bad rap. When
Well,
in fact,
and the district doesn't really have any control over that because often if you research the charter schools that are closing, you'll notice the district actually turned them down for the charter, but then they go running to Tallahassee and the Florida Department of Ed grants it to them.
Really?
And so there.
Oh, that definitely is a show then.
If anybody wants to know more about this, follow the money. You need to look at the representatives that
Follow the money.
Follow the money.
Oh, it's following the money. Everybody
right.
grab your cocktail.
Yeah, we need to
for that
follow
one.
it.
There,
Follow it.
cheers.
So we have a lot of legislators
How does a
making these
parent that
decisions.
is interested in getting engaged in your organization find out about you? How do they? Where can they call you at? Where, do you have a website? How do they, if they want to start getting involved?
They can do any of that but call me.
I know you
Oh, you don't give out your cell
We don't give
numbers?
out cell phones,
No.
right?
We have a website, optoutorlando.wordpress.com. And then we also have Opt Out Orlando on Facebook, which is a closed group. You have to ask to get in.
Yeah, you're very big on social media. I see you. You're all over the place.
Yeah. Well, it's the most effective way to store files for people to have access to our information about why we do it, how we do it. And it's a way for parents to engage each other. And they come up with a lot of solutions for each other. It has a lot less to do with us than you would think. There are 3 co-founders that started Opt Out Orlando, and we have grown across the whole state. We're going to be doing some reorganizing soon. There's also a national organization.
You said you were in Chicago just recently.
Yeah, I got to go to the Network for Public Education had a huge convention in downtown Chicago, and
What did they want to hear from you? What was it that they were looking for from you?
the Network for Public Education deals with the big picture. They talk about equity in education. They talk about the rights of teachers, and they were the national presidents of the 2 major teachers union were there. Karen Lewis, who was going to run for the mayor of Chicago and had to back out at the last minute. She was one of our keynote speakers. So they deal with the total problem with education, not only the testing portion. But the way that the funding is not happening, with No Child Left Behind being revisited right now. So they deal with both federal and state issues. So it's a little bit different than what we're dealing
It
with.
sounds like a whole total reform needs to happen. I
No,
don't
please
know.
don't. Please do not use the word reform. No, that's the problem.
That's the problem?
That is our problem.
Well, I don't know.
The
What would you
education-
say? Going back
We
to
are
what?
deformers.
You're deformers.
We
Okay.
want, the reformers are the ones that believe in the privatization of public ed. You can look at private or public education like this. It is like the last gold rush. Every kid in this country is required by law to be educated.
Right.
Everyone. From the child who doesn't speak English and has developmental issues or birth defects to the brightest student. Everyone is required by law to get an education. The products that support education are huge moneymakers, including testing. Every time a kid fails a test, somebody has to pay for another one. Somebody has to pay for all the support materials to support that kid to get them to pass the next one.
As I hear what you're saying is that as you follow the money, part of the reason that the testing is so significant is because somebody is making some money off of it.
They do, and if enough kids fail the test, they close the school and it converts to charter.
Wow.
Please do some everybody needs to run out there and start looking up names like Dayspring Academy, Academica. Those are the biggest charter companies that will help bring down and investigate Jeb Bush's foundation. That's very important.
What is his foundation called?
The Foundation for Florida's Future, and they set a foundation, a nonprofit foundation, has more influence over Florida education policy than anyone you're electing.
Wow.
And that's very important to remember. And this is
Wiley for governor.
Wow.
Adrian is actually a lobbyist now and may be working with us.
That's
Yeah.
gotta love that.
Yeah.
Gotta love that.
But
Thank
you know,
you.
I just don't want anybody to think this is a partisan issue. So I mentioned Jeb Bush's foundation,
Right.
but I want people
but
to
people need to know
understand
that.
that Jeb Bush is sitting on the same park bench as Barack Obama on education issues. We have Jeb Bush selling his theories to everyone, including across the pond. There are huge issues in Spain and England, across the world right now. There's a major education conference that will take place in January that's worldwide in Costa Rica. I mean, it's not an Orlando problem.
Right.
Wow, that's crazy.
Well, Cindy, thank you so much for joining us today. I think that, you know, there's obviously a lot. I'd love to have you back sometime to talk about charter schools more. You know, because as we've talked about this on OCPV, I know that sometimes you put it out there and then people start the conversation without you. Just keep it going. But,
Yes.
my hope is that, you know, parents and folks out there got some information from you today about what it is your mission is and what you're trying to accomplish. You know, anytime a parent takes the steps that you've taken, outside of being a parent, that to me is huge.
Yeah.
And so that alone,
Yeah. We like to drag people with us.
just take them with you.
That's
just
right.
take them with you.
That's right.
Thank
We-
you
yeah.
for coming today, Cindy. We
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it. And we'll see you just in a second right back here on the front porch. I don't know what we're going to talk about. Who knows? You never know what we're going to talk about on the front porch. We'll be back in just a second, everyone.
Randy and Friends.
We hope that you'll join us every week so we can talk about politics, a little bit of pop culture, and whatever's happening in our community that's going to change and help us all make us a better place to live, work, and play. So tune in to Front Porch Chat with Randy every Sunday at 11. I want to send a special shout out to Wildside. You know, I moved downtown in 2003. I used to go to Wildside's long before they did all the renovations, and I just love the owners, Barbara and Rosario Palma. They've always been supportive of whatever I've done, whether it's running for public office or in this case, a television show. So please, if you're ever downtown in Thornton Park at the corner of Summerlin and Washington Street, take a stop in at Wildsides. You're going to love their barbecue. You're going to love their food. You're going to love the ambiance. Wildsides, downtown in Thornton Park, and we appreciate your support. Hello everybody, we are here at Wildsides for our first viewing party for Front Porch Chat with Randy and Friends. Just got done talking to Jacqueline Siegel, who the show is that we're talking about. We hope everyone will continue to watch Front Porch Chat with Randy and Friends at 11 o'clock every Sunday. Great job, Randy.
And Friends.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Front Porch Chat with Randy and Friends. As we do on every show, we've got Betty back. Betty is on the set. Of course,
she's
Linda.
the whole show.
She really is. People like her better than us.
Yes.
And that's okay.
That's all
I'd
right.
even give Betty her own show. I don't mind producing Betty on the porch. Yeah. Let her be the one. Absolutely.
Everybody
So,
loves Miss
Betty, we talked about a lot of things today. What did you think about the fact that, I don't even know how to say it in front of my mom. What do you think about that football player deflating his balls?
Well, I think anybody deflates a ball so bad.
We got to keep them nice and round, Miss Betty.
yeah.
I agree.
You don't need them squishy.
Yeah.
No squishy balls. What do you think
Right.
about Mayor Dyer sending money up to the Jacksonville mayor's race?
I think that's just another one of the crooked mess that the government has.
Crooked mess.
Crooked mess.
Yes, I think
Oh,
there's a lot of crookedness.
Well, what about, let's just tag that on to the Paramore story. What about those houses that never were built in Paramore?
And they probably won't be.
I don't think they will be either.
Because
She just tells you the way it is.
Yeah,
That's
but
right.
the point is that's the way they should be with us.
Yeah.
Tell it. Don't lie about it.
Right. Well,
You
what
know.
they do, they get you
Well, I don't
ready.
understand what they were really
Ready.
thinking with those houses. I mean, they're beautifully. This dog is a total mess right here. This dog, Chloe.
Chloe thought she wanted to be a movie star last week.
She did. She's
No,
not. I need my Harpadoodle. No, she's a. They have these well landscaped lots. They have all of the facilities ready to put houses on it. But here, the gentleman, everybody was making fun of the guy who owns all the 100 homes over there, and he's right. Who wants to go, if at $100 a square foot, if that's what it costs to build a new home, it would basically be $120,000, $140,000, $50,000 to put a house on those parcels.
And I don't even think that qualifies like a Section 8 program. Isn't there like a certain amount of
so
money?
who's going to go move into Paramore and spend that kind of money? It's nothing against Paramore. It's the reality of the situation. If I was going to move into Paramore, I would buy an old home and fix it up. I would never go buy a brand new home in Paramore.
I think there was something way before that all came to fruition.
Do you think there's a master plan we're not aware of, a conspiracy theory?
Yeah, I do.
Well,
it happens all the time, and I hope Michael Cantone brings it to the surface.
Who's Michael Cantone? Everybody, Michael Cantone is a local, it's a friend of ours, a local writer that does a lot of amazing fact finding. We need to have him on the show soon.
We really
do.
I
He's really
definitely
good
wanna
at
be
really
there.
getting into the details of what we all don't even really realize is going on.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, Betty, what do you think about spending $174 million on a piece of art?
Well, I wish I had that kind of money.
If you had $174 million, what would you do first? What would be the first thing you would do?
First thing I would do probably is go out by myself,
Oh, by
a
yourself.
bunch of new clothes, and then possibly a Jaguar. I love those.
Are you going to get a handsome chauffeur for that?
Yeah.
So after $100,000, Betty's set. So there's a lot of money left over.
All she needs is her chauffeur, and she's good to go.
I think there's a lot better organizations that need some money.
And
They
people,
need
you know, when
help.
I see anybody, even when someone wins the lottery, let's say, and they get $200+ million, $400 million, whatever, you just don't need that much money. I just,
Yeah,
not that I'm taking
exactly.
away from it. I'm just saying that it seems like an awful lot of money for a piece of art.
It is. Even if you owe it.
But again, it's
mean-
just that being in that structure, that high level, that oh, I've got a Picasso that I paid 174 million. It's more of a bragging right than it
Right.
is anything.
Yeah.
So Betty, we were
Exactly.
talking about education. We went to public school growing up. This dog, seriously.
She's got a nervous
I'm gonna
twitch.
throw her in the swimming pool when it's all over. No, we went, but we had tests when we were. Did you have tests when you were going to school? Did you guys take testing? Really?
Not tests.
No, I'm talking about testing for
Yeah.
academia to determine if you're,
Yes.
the school was getting
I
enough
was
funding
way
or all these
down
different.
there, way up there.
So
No.
now the tests are tied to teacher incentives. They're tied to the grading of a school and things like that. What are your feelings about that and how that's taking people that are great teachers? They just don't want to teach anymore because all they're teaching are these tests.
Well, I've heard a little bit about that. I question a lot of things about some of that. I don't think testing is the answer for every person. I feel that way. But you.
Because some
you
people aren't
got
good at
to-
tests.
There are some.
Yeah, but
exactly.
you have to have some level of testing because you got to know where somebody is. So, for an example,
Yeah.
if we were doing a science, the teacher would teach us the subject, right?
Right.
And then you would do like a pre-test to kind of see what you were grasping or what
good.
you were getting, and then
But
you
why
would do
can't
a
the
master
individual
test.
performance in each one of those categories,
Because I think it's
math,
too much-
science,
but I think
reading,
it's too much
etc.,
work.
why can't that be your gauge? Why is there a whole nother test to decide if I totally understood what all the other stuff was?
That's the piece that I'm missing. Because when I was in school, I mean, you just
What is wrong with you?
learned from the book. The teacher taught you, and then you would do like little tests here and there. But it was in classroom
Yeah,
tests,
exactly.
and then you would do the big test, and that's what you got graded on to know if
Exactly.
you were going to be an A, B, C, D, or an F student. I mean, it was that simple.
Right.
This complication is just like with Grayson.
Right.
I mean, I literally look at his grades and go, I don't understand what you're doing. And
Right.
he's got to teach me. He has to go online and teach me.
And
It's
you're not
scary.
understand what
Wow, he's got to go
Well, because
online.
when I see these weird grades, I'm going, what does that mean exactly? You need to tell me, what does that mean? He goes, well, Mom, you just, okay.
Got to dumb it down for Mom.
Gotta dumb it down for
Okay,
Mom.
so with that said, folks, we are going to wrap up this week's show. We thank our guest, Cindy Hamilton, all the work that she does in the community. I mean, I've been impressed with her for a very long time and excited to have had her on the front porch. Glenda, as always, thank you for being on the show. Chloe, thank you for being who you are. And Betty, thank you for bringing your little perspective to it. Next week's show, totally different topic. And we'll see everybody next week on the front porch. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Porch with Randy and friends.
As you know, our show airs every Sunday at 11, but that may not be convenient for everyone. So what we do is we put all the shows up on www.frontporchchat.com. So you see all of our previous shows, but you can also go take a look at our store. You can buy t-shirts, coffee mugs, buttons, pins, keychains. All of that is available for sale on the website. Also, you'll get to see our new wine that's coming out this summer. It's private label wine. It's called FPC. We have a Merlot, we call it Merlot, and we have a Chardonnay called Chardonnay. More importantly, on this section, we have a private membership-only section. So for $2.99 a month, I mean, who can't afford that? You get to see everything that we're doing, and you also get private information regarding other shows that other people don't get to see, and coupons for various restaurants throughout the area. Front Porch Chat with Randy and Friends, every Sunday at 11.
Hurry up.